This is your Tuesday Daily Delivery. I am Michael Rand. We got a lot to get to today. Patrick Reusse joins me here in just a little bit, coming on Tuesday instead of Monday. A little schedule change this week. Want to talk a little bit of Vikings preseason stuff. One thing that caught my eye that I thought was a little bit interesting, something we had to get used to with the schedule. Some NBA Summer League stuff that was pretty interesting on Monday nights. Some good Wolves stuff, some fun Anthony Edwards comments, things like that. Twins do not win. Opposite of that, they continue to get dominated by the White Sox. I think Patrick and I will probably get into that a little bit as well. But first, what did I miss? Story that kind of feels like it's just kind of been sitting in the back burner a little bit, probably not to Wild fans, but maybe to me anyway, is this whole negotiation with Kirill Kaprizov and the Wild. And, you know, Kaprizov, as far as the NHL, can only sign with the Wild, and he's kind of, you know, he's in this weird kind of contract space where he's not a free agent. He can't sign an offer sheet anywhere else. He can only sign with the Wild, but he's using going back to play in Russia as a sort of leverage, and now that sort of leverage, that idea is kind of picking up some steam. There's a report in Daily Faceoff, Frank Saravalli, saying, update, hearing Kirill Kaprizov has a tentative agreement in place with CSKA Moscow on a 1-year, 8-figure deal. That would be at least $10 million if you're counting your figures, to begin on September 1st, should a new contract not materialize with the Wild. Now, that's a key phrase in that. However, the Wild appear ready and willing to talk a medium-term length deal. Next tweet, initial hang-up was Minnesota was only interested in a 7 or 8 year deal for the Calder Trophy winner. That's not the case. Bunch of options in term. Kaprizov camp contends there's been no offer made since April. It says, we'll see where this goes. The two sides remain in communication. Now, logically speaking, both sides have a lot of interest in getting something done before whatever this artificially imposed deadline is. But they got to get something done soon. I mean, training camp isn't that far away. The Wild needs to kind of lock up its future here. This has felt like leverage all along by Kaprizov, and he, even if he goes back to Moscow, the Wild would retain his rights for a number of years. It's not like he could just go there and become a free agent at a certain point. So this feels like it's coming to a happy conclusion, but it's in an unhappy place right now. If you are the Wild, certainly. If you're Bill Guerin, I don't think you're sweating right now. You're understanding this is part of negotiation. This is part of leverage. He's trying to get as many years, I guess, out of Kaprizov and his agent as possible, because it sounds like Kaprizov doesn't want the 8-year deal, the 8-year term, essentially, that the Wild would like him to sign. Wants a shorter deal, and I get it. It makes sense for him. He's 24 right now, signs a 5-year deal. Let's say a 5-year deal. He's 29, 29, 30 when free agency hits again. Then you got another shot at an even bigger contract, a bigger payday possibly, if he continues this trajectory that he started in the NHL last season when he was so dynamic. He's so important to the Wild right now, and that's the other piece of his leverage, like how much they know they need him based on how well he played last year, based on how much he transformed their roster in just that one season, that first season with the Wild. So again, I imagine this gets sorted out without anything getting too acrimonious, but it's not in a fun place right now. So I guess just sit tight. I guess if you're anxious, if your anxiety at the start of these negotiations was out of justifiably out of like a 1 to 10, it was like a 2 or 3. Not too worried, but hey, it's Minnesota. Anything can happen. Maybe nudge that up a little bit to like a 3 or a 4. But this isn't the panic button. This is more posturing than anything, I would imagine. And I think this still gets resolved happily. But that would be a real that would be a real blow if this gets even more serious and somehow he winds up playing next season in Moscow. I think cooler heads will prevail. I think both sides have reason to get something done in a medium-term kind of deal. But again, nothing to be taken for granted.
I'm Chris Hine, Timberwolves beat writer at the Star Tribune and the first 5-time guest in daily delivery history. Thank you for listening to this podcast. This work is made possible by our Star Tribune subscribers. For unlimited access to the articles mentioned in this podcast, our coverage of Minnesota sports from pros to preps, and even all of Rand's future blog posts about how the Timberwolves should trade for players they will never get, go to startribune.com/subscribe.
Happy to have Patrick Reusse on today. Patrick, a lot of things I want to get to with you. First and foremost, though, there's a report in the New York Post on Monday that Major League Baseball and the website Barstool Sports, sports website, purveyor of other things, I guess, if we're going to be polite at the outset, a partnership possibly to broadcast games, like midweek games. The whole baseball kind of broadcast package is changing. Again, that's a polite euphemism too, because some former carriers aren't so enthusiastic about the property anymore. But potential for a backlash here, because Barstool has been, a pretty aggressive site, has been, very, very much rooted in a misogynistic attitude. And there's already been some backlash. I've written about it. If this comes to fruition, what does this tell you, I guess, Patrick, about where Major League Baseball is right now, that they would consider this? Or do you not have as much of an issue with the path they're going down as I might?
Well, let me. What would they be doing? Radio broadcasts?
No, it would be streaming. It'd be streaming.
So they would be the streaming outlet, like I saw that the Lynx game on Saturday or sometime is on Facebook. So that would it'd be on YouTube. It would be like being on YouTube. The one game a week they're running on YouTube TV. So it would be streaming. But would Barstool Sports be providing the commentary then?
I think they would be I think there's some details to iron out, as they like to say, but the most logical explanation that I've heard is that basically it would be kind of a feed from one of the regional sports networks, but that it would be an alternate kind of, the game feed itself, like the action would be from an RSN, but that the commentary would be provided by the Barstool folks.
Yeah, well, okay. So Portnoy and the boys would be doing. I got to tell you, my familiarity with, I have not listened to any of their stuff more than 3 minutes in my life. So, sure. But I do know that they're getting themselves in trouble with because, are they going to have Barstool guys taking note of a good-looking woman in the stands and then commenting on it? Or, right. I mean, is that what they're looking? Because if that Barstool Sports audience is going to tune in, they're going to want the usual sexist comments, right? I mean, that's I don't know what it is certainly a wonderful example of the desperation baseball has here to reach a younger audience. And, but they have to realize that something like that's it's going to cause them more trouble than it's going to do good for them. You think this suddenly would be spring some kind of a bounce back and for baseball with younger audiences? I don't think that I would say the impact is a rock in a lake, don't you? I mean, the ripple effect would not be real long, but it is telling you how they're trying to do something and they don't know what it is. I think instead of serving their audience, their big problem is that instead of serving their audience that they do have, their big problem is they're so paranoid about 38-year-old people not watching it that they don't have any idea what to do about it. I guess it's, and I'm hearing the same old thing. I saw the same old thing. They don't do a good job of promoting their athletes, blah, blah, blah. That's a bunch of crap. It's not a sport that's made for me to turn it on and see a guy at the plate that I want to see. I got to wait till his turn comes up to the plate. It's not like turning on a basketball game and seeing LeBron James. He's going to be on the court. it's not like turning on a football game and waiting to see Patrick Mahomes. It's a completely different thing. Mike Trout can only get about 12% of the at-bats, right? Ohtani can only get 12%. That's just the nature of the game. You have to sell the game you have. And these wild ideas of how to reach a younger audience are not going to be are not the answer. That's for sure. And the other thing they're doing that agitates me is they want to go to 7 playoff teams. Baseball is a 162 game season. It's always been constructed that, okay, it's a marathon, and at the end of the marathon, the teams that did the best are getting some strong benefit, right? It's and this whole idea that you're going to become, because what you're basically doing is, by going to 7 teams, is telling it's 3 right now. You have the 2 teams who know they can be one and done. So you're telling 6 teams they can be 3 and done, right? I mean, right. It's the subtracting from the season long accomplishment. And if your team's 6 games under 500 and you're fighting for a playoff spot, you're not fooling the public. You're not fooling the public. Okay, the public knows that to be a playoff team, you should have to win 90 games, shouldn't you? I mean,
I would think so, or something close to it.
Yeah, something in the 80s. You should have to win something. So, I mean, they're doing a lot of silly things to try to reach out to a younger audience. And the best thing they can do is come up with a way to shorten the game and get the ball in play more often. Those are the 2 biggest problems. And number 3, streaming itself, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's, you were saying what the Twins TV ratings are horrible, right?
They're terrible. Yeah, they're down more than half. They were like, the households reached right now is down more than half from 2019, almost down half from last year, which is amazing.
And what is that? That's 50% being, no, that's probably 75% being terrible, but it's also 30%. There's probably 30% fewer cable home households now than there were in 2019, right?
Or 2020, like the Hulu and YouTube arrangements ended at the end of last regular season.
That's true. That's true too. Yes, I mean, that's instead of worrying about whether Barstool Sports is going to get their audience involved once a week, how about the people that want to actually watch baseball who can't because the Bally Sports is playing hardball and they can't make a deal with the streaming outlets. That's the huge problem here, for goodness sakes.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's hurting.
Yeah.
It's baseball is hurting. There's no doubt about it. And the funny thing is, I think the most telling comment I had was I was talking to a high school baseball coach, and he told me, he said, the kids like to play baseball as much as the kids that are involved in playing baseball like to play the game as much as they ever liked it. The problem is they don't watch it.
Yeah.
even the hardcore kid who plays baseball doesn't watch it. And it's not because of streaming. They'll go and look on their phones at a highlight if they hear about a highlight, but they don't sit down and watch a Twins game. And that's the biggest problem with the game. It just, in the video game age, it just doesn't relate.
Yeah, no, it's true. And you brought up a number of things I want to circle back on. One, this idea of Twins TV ratings, that's a good point. Just not being available, it's not serving the audience you have right now. Hope to get into that a little bit more later this week on the show with Twins president Dave St. Peter. So we'll hopefully be able to get into a little bit more of that with him. You mentioned length of game. That's the biggest problem, right? I mean, they're driving away audience with the pace, with the length. The Twins and Astros played a 9-inning game a couple days ago. It was 7-5. Nothing terribly unusual at a 7-5 final score. It was 4 hours and 7 minutes, Patrick. I just looked it up. 4 hours and 7. Like there's just That bothers me. I love watching baseball, but you're killing your product, and in getting Barstool Sports involved isn't going to help that, and B, yeah, I know you want to get them involved for gambling purposes down the line, things like that. Yeah, there's revenue there, but is that really a long-term play? I don't know.
Honest to God, Mike, I was laying on the couch. I'd gotten up early and I'd been up all day the day before, and I fell asleep. And I watching the Twins game, and about the third inning, and I was sleeping for 2 hours, and I woke up and it was the seventh.
I turned it on. Like, I was like, oh, if I kind of forgot to watch the Twins, it was like 3:45 or so. I was like, oh, I hope it's still on. Turned on, it was like the sixth inning. I was like, what is going on here?
Yeah, it's just sometimes they. You know what's the underrated problem of modern baseball?
No.
Foul balls.
Yeah.
Foul balls. Keep the ball in play. I don't think we can ever get to the one radical idea you never hear is, okay, you get 4 of them and then you're out.
Yeah.
Like they do in Little League or some of these places. You got to get more sincere efforts to hit the ball instead of just to foul it off. It's incredible, the number of 8 pitch at bats. It's amazing.
What would announcers
how
do?
How far are we from 3 balls and 2 strikes?
Yeah, that would be pretty radical, wouldn't it? I mean, that's
but it would. The only trouble is it would make the strikeout totals just enormous. But
right.
You got to do something to get guys to swing the bats, and you got to do something to get pitchers to throw the ball over the plate. Nobody, the old pitcher, the Ferguson Jenkins, who ended up in the Hall of Fame, throwing it over.
Right.
His goal was to go 9 innings and throw 93 pitches. Everybody's trying to make a perfect pitch right now. Even Bo Burrows is trying to make a perfect pitch right now.
Not a lot of them were perfect. Monday, we should talk about that game. 11-1, I think, was the final against the White Sox. Twins have just gotten absolutely creamed by the White Sox all season. The White Sox have hit like 30 some home runs. I can't remember how many it's been. It's just been lopsided. And you look at the pitching matchups right now. And back to one point you made about the expanded playoffs. I'm just realizing now, though, how hard it is when a team is just playing out the string. We've had so many years like this with the Twins, and they probably wouldn't be in any kind of contention right now anyway. But the one argument for a little bit of playoff expansion is that you've got fewer teams playing out the string like this in August and September, where these games just don't matter unless you really care about the prospects.
Yeah, that's one thing you have to, one thing you have to do is maybe more bring up the young guys to get somebody to look at them. But the Twins don't have a phenom sitting over there right now that you got to go, that you want to see anyway, right? They don't have
a healthy one. So. Yeah.
But here's my theory. When you pick up a guy like Bo Burrows, what do you hope this is going to accomplish long term? Do you think suddenly he was once a high draft choice, but I mean, you're claiming these guys and running them out there when they have no chance to ever do anything meaningful for you. It just drives me crazy that you just it's throwing darts. Somebody gets let go, they claim them, they run them out there, and you're just filling innings. You're not trying to have anybody that can develop into something and accomplish something. It used to be if you were throwing pitchers out there in August, it was because you thought they had a chance. This guy's got no chance. They got 4 of them on there that have no chance. This is I don't know. It's just you watch that game last night, and it was just. And then you see Rocco's quotes about he talked to him after the second inning, and he really felt bad. Okay, that makes me feel good, Rocco, that a guy would give up 8 or whatever it is, give up 5 before you stop, before you knew what hit you. But he felt bad about it. Okay, Rocco, thank you. How about telling me that he stunk?
Which he did.
Yes.
Yeah, and I don't have Griffin Jackson, Bailey Ober in the last 2 games of the series. At least those guys have shown a little something so far this year. It's not a total. That's not
You
it.
know
Those aren't give up games. They want to see what these guys can do at least.
One other thing I've noticed is, in the last year or so, when you write stuff about the Twins, and you look at if you look at our stories and then look at the comments, unless it's something controversial, nobody comments on it. Nobody, there's like two guys that'll comment and saying the problem is the Polac's cheap and we shouldn't have given them money for the stadium, and which now was 12 years ago, but the you got your Vikings and the Timberwolves, and I mean not the Timberwolves, but the NBA stuff. They don't around here. The Vikings are. I mean, it's never been. There's never been anything as dominant as the Vikings are right now. But the baseball might be right there with the Loons as far as interest of newspaper readers, from what I can see. Not the at least StarTribune.com readers. They get very few comments on those stories.
Yeah. Patrick, really quick before we go, I talked about this at the beginning of the show. What's your if I told you that Kirill Kaprizov has a 8-figure contract, a 1-year 8-figure contract on the table, reportedly from a team in Moscow? What's your level of concern that this is going to go sideways versus this is just negotiation and everything's going to be fine?
I'm not saying everything's going to be fine. They're going to have to get off, Garen's going to have to get off his idea that he's going to get him for long term for $8 million a year. That ain't happening. Or even 6 or 7 that they were offering. Sign him to a 3-year deal for $24 million and let him be a free agent would be my get. But whenever I hear this, I always remember when Kevin McHale, I think it was Ron Simon was his agent, and they were threatening for that they were going to Europe, and Kevin was going to negotiate with Italy, with an Italian team, to get the Celtics to pay him more. And the famous story is that Simon's, we're going to do this. They're threatening him, and Simon calls Bill Fitch, who was the general manager and coach of, and Fitch answers the phone and says, "Buongiorno." Now obviously that was more BS than Kaprizov going back to Russia. But when I hear that, I always remember the Fitch story. Buongiorno.
That's terrific. That's terrific.
I'm gonna pay you what I'm gonna pay you. So come back from Italy, you dummies. I don't know if they ever went over there. They just threatened to went over. I think they actually went over there. I'm not sure. But, I don't know. You got us. I mean, hey, you were terrible, and then you got him, and you were good.
That's his leverage. That's his leverage right there.
That's all we have to do is look at that. Yep. Suddenly, you were, you made other improvements, but you don't have him. You're not making the playoffs, or if you do, you're an 8 seed or something like that. You need him, pay him, forget about the balanced roster and all that stuff. You need this kid, and you also need him for the excitement that you're bringing to your fans, and you just look like morons if you don't have him on your roster when training camp starts. It's weird to me that he's got some kind of because they gave him a contract hoping he could play in the bubble.
Right. They burned that year basically.
Yeah, they burned a year. They got themselves in this situation where I don't know how after his rookie year the guy can be in this situation where he doesn't have to come to camp, right? I mean, he doesn't. They have no. It's not like the the NFL where they can fine you for not being in camp. Right. It's I don't know how they got themselves in this predicament. It's kind of stupid, to be honest. And but Garen's a hard nose, so it'll be it'll be interesting what happens here, because I don't think there's anyway. As we said before, Mike, we have the odd situation of a player fighting for a shorter contract.
Exactly.
You don't see that.
I don't want 8 years. Give me 4 or 5. I don't want to.
Although you'd see it with rookies in the NFL if they had their way, they'd sign for. They'd rather not be first rounders. They get the money, but the fact that they don't have to, they got them for 5 years of cheap money. So anyway,
all right, sir. Good stuff. Appreciate it. We'll do this again next week. All right.
All right. Thanks, Mike.
Good stuff from Patrick as always, and should have him back on the Monday schedule next week. I want to talk a little NBA Summer League right now because the Wolves were interesting on Monday night on a couple of fronts. One, Anthony Edwards was in attendance in Vegas. Big news there. Sounds like he's healthy. He got interviewed on camera, and sounds like everything's okay in that regard. So there was some concern about an injury he had sustained with USA Basketball, but that seems like it's getting better at the very least. So, but he did a courtside interview with ESPN. Here's a tiny clip from just the personality of Anthony Edwards coming through in that clip.
I got baptized in Lake Minnetonka. I hit a couple backflips, swimming. I'm going back out there real soon. Meet me at Lake Minnetonka, all Minnesota fans. I'm going back out there, jet skis, everything. We're going to have fun.
Can you swim?
Yeah, like Michael Phelps.
Like Michael Phelps?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Multi-talented baby. Love it. Looking forward to hearing him express himself even more in this upcoming season. But the bigger news, of course, that sounds like he's healthy and should be a full go as they gear up for training camp here in a little while. On the court was more interesting, too. Nathan Knight caught my eye a little bit. And again, this is Summer League. This is, not the NBA, not the real deal, but he's a two-way guy. He's a big. The Wolves need bigs, 6'10", 250, somewhere in that range. Had 19 points, 9 rebounds in the Summer League. As the Summer League Wolves beat the Summer League Spurs 91-89, he had the game-winning hoop as well. Jalen Noel had 24. Jaden McDaniels had 18. Local guy, McKinley Wright had a nice game too, 8 points. He was a +6 in the game he started as well. But Nathan Knight was the one that really caught my eye as someone who could potentially help them next year. I want to see a lot more before I'm ready to declare that. But he's a two-way contract. He played for the Hawks last season. Probably caught up in a little bit of a numbers game there. He was undrafted out of college, William & Mary in 2020. But someone who has some interesting skill sets that they could potentially use, and here he was talking about his own performance after the game.
I think Summer League in general is an opportunity for guys to come out and showcase what they can do, showcase their strengths, and those are some of my strengths and my hard work. I'm a communicator, I'm a defender, and today was just a product of that. And most importantly, I want to win. Looks a lot better on your resume when you win these games too. So, coming out here, having fun with those guys, competing, getting up and down, I think that's just, it just comes with the game.
Now, Summer League coach Jeff Newton also had praise for Knight, talking about how he could fit into this year's team. Interesting thing about Newton, though, is he wasn't supposed to coach the Summer League team. He was hastily promoted into that role when we found out on Monday that Joseph Blair is leaving the Wolves staff for a promotion, going to the Wizards. This is an interesting kind of maneuver because Blair was supposed to essentially kind of be the defensive coach here, and now the Wolves will be scrambling a little bit. Most of the offseason, coaching carousel has stopped, except with Washington, obviously, which didn't fill its head coaching job all that long ago, and now has taken Blair away from the Wolves staff. So, be interesting to see who the replacement is. No, not the Summer League coach, because we know that's Newton, but who the Summer League who the defensive coach will be in the regular season for the Wolves, an area that they need to improve on greatly if they're going to have any sort of success this season. Let's finish with the cooler. One thing I'd forgotten about is the NFL season, of course, now at 17 games. That means there's only 3 preseason games this season, which is fine, probably just as well that they do away with one of those preseason games. What it does, though, is it changes kind of the scheduling of how coaches use their players during the preseason. Mike Zimmer was asked about that on Monday. Vikings head coach saying he's thought about it a lot, trying to figure out when to use, his kind of starters, his core players, when to really deploy them in the preseason. It used to be we would term the third preseason game the all-important third preseason game, because that was when a lot of the starters played, at least a half of the game to try to get up to game speed. And then the last game was more about reserves playing before cutdowns, trying to see who your backups were. That could get shifted down one. That second preseason game could now become the all-important preseason game if you are trying to mark your calendars appropriately. Think of it in that way. That'll do it for today. Thanks so much for joining me and Patrick Reusse on Daily Delivery today. Back at it again tomorrow. Thanks for listening. Download this podcast. Please write a review, leave a rating if you would, wherever you get your finer podcasts, and I will get you again on Wednesday.